welcome back to my YouTube channel, and if you're new here, my name is Becky. I am a fashion and lifestyle blogger and I post here on YouTube 2, maybe 3 times a week at the moment, but this is probably not surprising given the video that you're watching. I am incredibly inconsistent on YouTube. So if you are looking for consistent content, my YouTube channel is not it. Like, I'm doing well at the moment, but I can't promise how long it's gonna last. I'm pretty consistent on my Instagram, like most days I post, so go check me out over there too. We just hit 100,000 over there last week, which is like mind-blowing. And I would love to see your faces over there, so go follow me over there too. Today's video, using the title, you know what we're going to talk about. In the last like couple of vlogs that I've posted, have very much alluded to there being kind of something going on. I had like this medical appointment that I wasn't really explaining, that I was excited for, which doesn't really make sense for a medical appointment. So this, I guess, is the explanation for that. A couple of weeks ago now, I'm not really sure how long ago it was, like time's flying at the moment. I was diagnosed with combined ADHD, which is a kind of diagnosis that I kind of actively sought. I will explain a little bit more in a minute. Yeah, that's what the appointment was that I was talking about. And today is my first day on medication. I took my first pill at about 9 this morning. It's currently about 5 o'clock. I have been vlogging throughout the day, so you're going to see those clips in a little while. I want to talk a little bit about the kind of diagnosis process, because I feel like when I was searching on YouTube for like information when I was going through it, I wasn't finding many people in the UK who were like me, who had done it, or like had kind of gone privately like I did. And just generally, like, I just didn't feel like I could find enough people like me talking about this, so I want to be the person that's talking about it. Also, as you will all know, once again, 2 separate things here, as you will, or a lot of you that watch me will already know this, and those of you who don't watch me but are aware of ADHD symptoms will not be surprised by this. My personal brand, like above all, above fashion, above lifestyle, above being obsessed with my dog, my personal brand is oversharing. If you know me in real life, even more so, but especially oversharing on the internet. And okay, I've gone off on a tangent. Why was I talking about oversharing? Oh yeah, because of course I'm going to talk about this on the internet, because I'm a chronic oversharer. I'm going to talk a little bit about like why I kind of sought a diagnosis, how symptoms kind of presented for me, the process of getting the diagnosis, and then I'll go ahead and show you guys the vlog from today where I've been kind of documenting my experience of my first day on medication. For me, like, there were a lot of reasons that I sought diagnosis, or like sought an assessment, really, more than actively seeking a diagnosis. A bit of both, really. And that is like, so to go back to like when I was young, I've always, for as long as I can remember, I've always had this sense that like I was different to the people around me, and that like I just didn't work the way that they did, and there was just something off. I always really struggled with making friends, particularly when I was younger. As I've gone a bit older, I kind of, I guess, learned what people expect more, and I can be a bit better, but still it's a bit of a struggle for me, and I'll explain that later. But yeah, I really struggled making friends, keeping friends when I was young. Very much struggled with like being very clumsy, really struggling with focus in terms of like in class, with paying attention to like what people are saying to me. For instance, like if somebody left something on the steps, you know, like, I don't know if you guys' parents did this, but mine did sometimes. They would leave something at the bottom of the steps so that when somebody goes up, they'll see it and take it up. And for me, I would basically never take it, but not because I couldn't be bothered to take it, but because like I just wouldn't notice it. Like I wasn't paying enough attention to notice that it was physically there. I was always that kid that like if we were in class, like, oh my gosh, if we were reading as a class, you know, when you like read together, could not cope with this at all, because they would go so slow. So I would always like read ahead, and then the teacher's asking questions, I don't know what questions they're asking because I don't know what they're up to, or Like there were some classes where I would literally just take like a book and read. In university, I basically never ever went to any classes. Probably for my undergrad and my master's, less than 50 classes in total. Much less than 50, maybe under 40 or 30, I don't know. Because I just couldn't focus. Like I could learn the content much more efficiently at home, in my own time, in my own pace. Just didn't work for me. Yeah, as I kind of went to college and I lost that structure of where like my parents weren't, this is gonna sound not how I mean it, so bear with me, like without my parents controlling everything. So by that I mean like reminding me to do my homework, or making sure I go to class, or speaking with my teachers really regularly, so knowing how I'm behaving in class. Without that kind of structure from my parents, like things really fell apart for me in college. I went from being like a straight A-star student to failing in my first year of A-levels. In second year, like desperately trying to retake things. And unfortunately like not really coming out with grades that were, I think, were reflective of what I could have done with more support for what I now know to be ADHD. More help for that could have helped me learn more efficiently and could have really helped there. And obviously, like I said, going to university, classes were a really big struggle again for me. Putting things off, that lack of like ability to, even if I want to do something, not being able to. And for instance, I wrote basically like my entire undergrad thesis in like a week before it was due. I think it was actually the 4 days before it was due. I think I had like a draft of the introduction or something that they'd made us write, and otherwise I think I wrote like everything in the last, was it 4 days for my undergrad?
I think so. No, I think it was the last day.
The last day, the entire dissertation. I think I finished it like 2 hours before the deadline, but I think it did take a very solid state of hyper focus for like 4 days. I think my master's one I wrote mostly in the week before. I was quite early on that one.
You were.
Yeah, I never like did anything a second before it had to be done. And like, I guess those are like the very specific things throughout my education, but also more generally, like just always like a really big struggle with attention and paying attention to what I'm saying, even paying attention to what somebody is saying. I'm pretty much always noticing stickers on my cups while I'm talking, or like where I'm sat in front of the window I can see some roads, so maybe I'm noticing like the cars driving past, and like just like not really being able to stay in the moment. This morning after taking my medication, I was laid on the bed and like just thinking, and I realized we've lived in this apartment for like 3.5 months. There is a what is it called, a fire, you know, they detect the fire detector on the roof above our bed, and it flashes lights. I've never seen that thing before in my life. Never. Like really struggling to stay focused on what is happening. Very fidgety. Like I'm constantly driving people around me crazy, moving so much, and like, and I don't just mean like I'm always like fidgeting with my hands, but also like I'll be sat cross-legged and then I'm sat on one leg and then I'm sat on the other leg and then I'm stretching out, or I'm sat on the floor and then on a chair and then on the sofa, and then like moving around a lot. So a lot of like, I guess it's hyperactivity, but in the sense of not in like the classic sense of what you might picture when you think of ADHD. It's much more like fidgety, nervous energy. My brain is always like racing. I can't really I can't just sit and do nothing. It makes me feel like furious. So very much that kind of idea of like running on a motor. I'm very much a workaholic. Like I'll work a lot, or like cramming extra work into little breaks that I have, or trying to go to the gym and like doing things, so like chores, gym, work, like always doing something, and from one thing to the next to the next. It's not really that I, you know, want to work that much or need to work that much sometimes. It's that I need to be doing something, or my brain is just like can't cope with not doing, and then maybe that comes out more physically fidgeting if I'm not like I feel like I'm not explaining this very well, but I feel like I'm struggling to keep track of what I'm saying as well. So you kind of get what I mean, like just very scattered, and like I'm very clumsy and make mistakes a lot because I'm moving so quickly. Like a few weeks ago I turned the fan on in our bedroom, and I know that if I put the fan on, and you know they have the setting where they turn, if I leave that setting on, it turns, and then we have a picture that's kind of like this on a table, and it blows the picture off, like the picture falls down. I put this fan up, turned the setting on, let it turn. There was a candle lit in front of the picture that it knocked off. Like, just little things like this that like could be very dangerous, but I just can't really like pay so much attention to. Constant need for like stimulation, and you know, like I'm always playing a YouTube video while I'm listening to something, listening to TikToks or music like as loud as I can, or wanting to eat for the sake of eating and things like that. Just like this constant drive for stimulation. Can't stop talking. Poor Philip, living with me for 7 years nearly. Like, I never shut up. Last week there was one day and I was doing yoga here and he was cooking over there, and I said to him, oh, should we have like a quiet half an hour now then, and blah blah blah. And then after like 5 minutes I'm chattering away, and like poor man's just trying to have a quiet moment. So yeah, like very go go go. You could probably, in fact, a week or so ago we took my friend to the airport and I woke up at like 1:30 in the morning, and after like 2 or 3 minutes, when the sleepiness, like the physical sleepiness had worn off, it was like bouncing, like so energetic. We were walking to our car and I was like skipping along, and it's like 1:45 in the morning. I've had an hour and a half sleep. So yeah, very like on the go, really struggling to pay attention. And you know, like for instance, sometimes because I can't focus on a task, I'll spend a lot longer on the task than needs to be because I can't focus on it, but it needs to be done. So maybe like an hour task will take 10 hours or something like that. I was telling Philip earlier, like the laundry, like if I know I have to go and fold some laundry, I might spend an hour and a half trying to convince myself to go fold the laundry when it's a 5-minute job. So like it's very tricky for me in that sense. So these were like a lot of the reasons that I decided to get an assessment. A few years ago I was quite convinced that I had bipolar, because I was having these really intense ups and downs of mood, and like if I had a really productive day I would be like really happy, really hyper, I guess I now know it as. But then if I had like a very unproductive day because I couldn't pay attention to something or something like that, I would be very like really miserable. I'm a very like driven, goal-oriented person, so for me, like, I guess in an unhealthy way, but this is like a separate issue to unpack another day. In a way, like my self-worth is very, and like my happiness is very linked to how much I'm able to get done. So at the time I thought this was like bipolar because my moods were going up and down. And I saw a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist disagreed and said, you know, like it seems to be more linked to productivity and it's going too quickly, like it's not bipolar. Around the start of this year I started seeing lots of videos of women talking about ADHD, talking about being diagnosed with ADHD late in life, kind of just like those like more nuances. And it just got to the point where I related to one too many videos that it just felt like this was something that I needed to look into. So I started researching the symptoms more and taking like online tests. I know these are not super accurate, don't worry, just for an idea. And these tests were coming back that, you know, maybe it's worth getting an assessment, and like the more traits I read, the more I was like, that's me in a nutshell. And then I spoke with one of my friends, Self-Love Live, and she said to me that she had heard that sometimes people can confuse the symptoms of the two, of bipolar and ADHD, because, well, for exactly the reason that I did. So I kind of thought about it a bit more and I did some more like research. I decided to speak to my GP and ask for an assessment. My GP was lovely and he was like, yeah, absolutely, we can definitely get you an assessment. We'll put you on the list. You'll get a letter with an appointment. I can't tell you how long it will be. So then I waited, I think it was around a month, And I called back and I said, you know, like, I know it's probably going to be a long wait. I know you can't tell me when it is, but do you know when I will get the appointment? Because even if the appointment's going to be in like a year, it'd be nice to know that it's going to happen then. And I spoke to a different GP this time, and she was like, oh honey, it's going to be years at least, and I don't know when you're even going to have your appointment booked. If you're like feeling that desperate, like probably you're going to have to go private. Not that she was really encouraging me to go private as much as like, you know, like the things I was saying to her, like, I really need an answer, I really need to know this is it, and I'm really struggling at the moment. Kind of, she was like, if that's the case, probably this would be the best route for you. And she was very apologetic that she couldn't do more, but what can they do? So I spent some time looking into Right to Choose, and I spoke to a couple of different companies. I spoke to, I think it was Psychiatry UK and ADHD 360, and they both said that it was going to be a long time. I think one of them said it was a 3-year wait, and one of them said it was like 4 or 5 through Right to Choose, and I decided that just wasn't it. So I ended up deciding that I would like to go with ADHD 360, and ADHD 360 told me that the wait list was going to be roughly, I think, 2 years to be seen privately. I can't remember exactly, which is just awful, like soul destroying. And I thought, okay, if that's what it's going to be, that's what it's going to be. Like, this is the company that from my research I feel like I trust the most. They also work with the NHS, so I could, you know, once I'm stable on medication, I can hopefully go into shed care with my GP, and my GP have said that they're happy with that for this company. So I decided they were going to be the best choice for me, and I was just going to wait. So you have to take like, you have to make like an account with them, and then you take what's it called now? A test, yes, like a screening test. And based on that score, they decide whether they think that you should get an assessment. So obviously I scored very highly on the test, and they said, yeah, you're gonna need an like we would recommend an assessment. So then you have to pay like I think it's £170 for like a booking fee kind of thing. And then once you've paid that, it like tells you what appointments are available, and you can book your appointment. I was very lucky in that there was an appointment, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks later. I don't know if it was a cancellation or just like an open slot by coincidence, I don't know, because I think other than that, generally the wait was more like, I think there were a few around 6 months, and then some later on. I can't really remember for sure, to be honest. I booked that appointment, and they ask you to fill in some more forms, some more like questionnaires. They ask you to submit like your blood pressure, your pulse, and they ask you to submit any supporting documentation that you think could help. So maybe like school reports, or I don't know what else there might be. I didn't submit any of those. I just did like all the questions they asked and stuff. When it came to my appointment, it happened over Skype, so I did that. My partner Philip joined with me, just kind of for like moral support. Within the first 5 minutes of the call, I accidentally ended the call, and when he asked for my ID, couldn't find my purse, had to ask Philip where that was, or if he knew where that was at least. Then when I did find my purse, my driving license wasn't in there, so then Philip suggested that I got my passport, and then I didn't know where my passport was. So really great start to that. And then yeah, throughout the call we basically went through like a risk assessment, like, do you want to harm yourself, have you ever, like those kinds of questions. And through a lot of, I explained like what made me want to get an assessment and what I was hoping for, and blah blah blah. And then we went through for about an hour, I think, a bunch of questions that he had, like, do you ever do this, or what would you do in this instance, kind of things. Very kind of like, I guess, ADHD focused, because obviously that would have been him going through the criteria. And then at the end of the call he said, yep, you definitely have like combined ADHD. What do you want to do, basically? So obviously you can just do therapy or coaching or a medication. From what I've read, to kind of see like your maximum improvement, you're looking at like an 80% reduction in symptoms with medication, and then the other 20% you would need to live like healthy lifestyle and be working out regularly and eating, you know, healthy food and sleeping well and things like that. So for me, I really wanted to try the medication. Wasn't particularly interested in like coaching or therapy or anything, because I've had therapy for other reasons before and I can't sit still for that long or like pay attention for that long. I find it incredibly difficult. And in terms of coaching, like I've read every tip there is on the internet. I have a basket by the door so I can put my keys in it. I have trackers on my keys so I can make them beep when I lose them. Like I've found every tip there is and I've tried them all and they've helped for sure, but I felt like medication was what I needed to try now. Like I was at that point. So basically I told him I would like to try medication. He actually said to me that he thinks that's a good idea, and that the same number that I'd read online, that medication can improve your symptoms by up to about 80%, but the other 20% needs to be lifestyle. So that was really reassuring that kind of we were on the same page there. And then, so it's Saturday, so actually my appointment must have been not the Thursday just gone, the one before that, because he said, you know, like the medication will be with you then roughly Thursday next week, and it came Friday, so like yesterday. We did briefly discuss, he asked, you know, what do I know about medications and if I had preferences and things like that. We went through some like risk factors, because for instance the one that I'm on can reduce your appetite a lot, so if perhaps you have issues with like eating disorders where you've undereaten, that could be an issue. So we discussed and we decided that I'm going to be taking 30 milligrams of Elvance every morning. It is a stimulant medication, so I'll be taking that first thing when I wake up every morning. I'm taking 30 milligrams for 7 days, and then I'm going to be going on to 50 milligrams for 3 weeks, and we will review and kind of see how that goes. As you will see from my vlogging of the day, so far, like I feel like there's a huge improvement. It's quite crazy actually, which is very exciting. I did plan on putting this kind of chat now and then the vlog into one video, but I can see that I've been talking for like 25 minutes, and I don't think anybody, especially anybody that's searching for this kind of content, wants to hear me just sit and talk for 25 minutes and then watch a vlog for like 10 or 15 more. So I think I'm going to separate it into two, but I'll post like this video and then the vlog like just a couple days afterwards. So yeah, that's pretty much where we're up to, I'll be honest. And like I said, I've always had this feeling that I was different. I always had this feeling that I was just an incredibly lazy person. And this always had this very like nagging feeling of that I'm like not fulfilling my potential and I'm letting myself down. So for me, this kind of diagnosis and the medication comes with a lot of excitement, because I'm really kind of excited to see how this treatment and a new understanding of myself can help me like be a better version of me, I guess. I don't know, like that's a very nice thing to say, but like I mean in terms of like maybe just being kinder to myself or understanding how my brain works, so I can like not punish myself if it's not doing what I want or things like that. Like today I feel very, very calm, so being less stressed and things like that. It's very exciting for me. It feels like a new chapter, a new leaf, and I'm really, really excited to like go on this journey and see how things go. Don't really know how to close off this video. That's me so far. That's why I had an assessment. That's how my assessment was. If you have any questions or if there's anything else you'd like to know on the topic, I'm more than happy to make more videos, because like I said, compulsive oversharer is my brand. Will it be my brand for much longer? Because will my medication affect that? You're gonna have to come back to find out. I'm gonna leave this video there. The vlog of my first day on medication will go up in a few days, maybe tomorrow. Like I might post these one after the other just because it's kind of like part one, part two. We'll see. But thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't say anything if you don't have anything nice to say. I'm not interested. And thank you to all of you who I already know are going to be absolutely lovely. And I will see you on the next one. Bye.